Kia ora koutou. It's really great to be here with you. I have, as Silvana said, worked at the joint venture now for a few years. I'm actually an Aucklander, born and raised in Auckland. My mother is a Pākehā Kiwi and my father is an Egyptian. I love to tell people that I'm actually an Egyptian princess. And yeah, I have lived now in Wellington for about 15 or 16 years. Creating the strategy and spending time crafting the strategy through 2021 was a really long effort. It took, so many people a lot of time. So people like that I can see on this call, like Silvana, Faria, were deeply involved in helping have conversations about what the strategy needed to contain, what was most important to you, and what was most important to actually eliminating violence. We took a very different approach to creating the strategy last year. So normally when government does this sort of stuff, there might be a nationwide roadshow, they call it, where government goes from town to town. There might be a half day or something like that. You get put in a room with a lot of strangers or people that you don't know, and you get asked some questions that you may or may not feel comfortable answering. Because of the really personal and sensitive nature of family violence and sexual violence, we didn't want to do that. And we'd heard from a lot of people like Silvana and Faria that we needed to really think about how to create a trusted and intimate space for these conversations to occur. And these ladies took the lead in having conversations last year so that we could really get to hear what was most important for you in eliminating violence. That happened through May and June last year. And then from July onwards, we sort of started to kind of craft and workshop what was going to be in the strategy. And Silvana came to Wellington and helped us do that quite a lot. We took the strategy to ministers in October, and I sort of look back now. I've had, a few months of therapy and things like that, and it is actually quite different to what we took in October. Not so much the content of the strategy, but more the action plan. So we were really keen to have a very, very small action plan with, say, 5 actions that would be very difficult to achieve, but require us to work together across government and community and tangata whenua. So the sorts of things we were thinking about was, how do we all come around the family court to make the changes that people are looking for? How do we actually change the rules in visas, for example, and things like that? Ministers, I think it's fair to say, didn't love that. And at the time I thought, oh my goodness, who are these people? What do they think? But actually now I feel a lot more sympathetic and understanding about why they said that. And really for them, the key thing was around wanting to show all of the work that's already happening around government. And so that is why there are not 5 actions in the action plan, but 40 actions. And for them, it was really important to highlight that there was a whole lot of stuff underway, as well as some new actions in the action plan. I think that means that some of these really hard, knotty actions that aren't in the action plan, we've really got to think about how they're going to be in the next action plan and really start pushing over the next year to ensure that by the end of next year, December 2024, when this action plan expires, it's a 2-year action plan, that the new action plan contains those sorts of things. And if anyone is successful in getting a smaller number than 40, I will kiss you, because I tell you what, trying to track 40 actions is really hard work. When we were thinking about the strategy, we were really keen to have the key sorts of things that needed to change in the system, and we call those the shifts. This strategy has 6, and then an additional shift, which is not actually a sort of called a shift, but it's called learning and monitoring. And that's because we know that whatever we do in the system, we really have to learn from and have a cycle of continually informing improvement within the system. And, you know, actually that's one of the hardest things to do. I don't think it's really done that well in many places. And if you think you have seen it working well somewhere, I'd really love to hear about that, because I am always on the lookout for really good examples that we can learn from and perhaps steal parts of. The strategy is sort of, the 6 shifts sort of form into 2 groups. So shifts 1, 2, and 3 focus on a holistic system that has a workforce that is focused on well-being and that is led by communities. And I'll talk more in depth about each of those things. So those are shifts 1, 2, and 3. Shifts 4, 5, and 6 actually relate to the different parts of the system that actually work with people. So the prevention, the healing, and the responding. And obviously they're all underpinned by shift 3, which is that workforce shift. Shifts 4, 5, and 6, we're really looking to have those as holistic as possible. So at the moment, we hear a lot about people going into a program, it only lasting 18 weeks, and then wanting to have something longer that's perhaps located with people that they know and trust and is responding to the things that they're looking for. And ideally, a whole lot of things that are able to happen or work before harm occurs. So that's really all around shift 4, which is strengthening, and shift 2, the community-led prevention. That's cool, Silvana. I was going to share actually this page. Am I able to share? How do I do that share screen? Oh, can you let me share, please?
Yep, you should be able now.
Awesome. Okay. Okay. So I'm sorry, this one is cut in half, which is very annoying. I'll just show you the, wait, can you see that? Are you able to see that? No, okay, hang on. Let's try that again. Okay. Can you see it now? Okay, cool. So this page is in both the strategy and the action plan, and this is one half, and then I'll just show you the next half. So this page says we will change the way we work by creating a system that enables change for all people. And on the far left side here, you've got the shifts. So shift 1 towards strength-based wellbeing, shift 2 towards mobilising communities, shift 3 towards skilled, culturally competent and sustainable workforces, and then shift 4, primary prevention and towards investment in primary prevention, 5, safe, accessible and integrated responses, and 6, increased capacity for healing. And what those 6 shifts are trying to do is work together to create the change across the system that we know needs to happen. The next column, by creating a system that enables, these are the sort of impacts that we're hoping we'll see as a result of the shifts. So we'll see government is committed to addressing the underlying social conditions and norms that allow violence to thrive. We know that that is critical to really enabling greater prevention of violence, because you're stopping the conditions. Communities design, lead and deliver solutions that affect change. So all of the research shows that if government gets out of the way and supports communities, that is how you start to create the conditions that don't allow violence to flourish. Government and communities work better together. So all through the engagement, we heard you people need to start coming on board with supporting us, supporting providers to actually work in the way we need to. Primary prevention is aligned. So we also heard a lot about the small amounts of primary prevention that are happening aren't well integrated with each other and with existing government responses. And so what we're looking for is across government, as we start to do more primary prevention with communities, we're actually making sure we're clear on who's doing what so that we're addressing different parts of the system and not doubling up. Workforces are skilled, culturally competent and sustainable. So that's all about that shift 3, making sure workforces are fit for the future. And then we heard a lot about this through the engagement too. Services are joined up, timely and easy to navigate. Someone said to me that if this happened, we would not need navigators, we would not need coordinators, we would not need, people that are there aligning things. And I think that's probably true. I do think we've got a long way to go before we get there. And then on this page, this talks about all of the changes that we hope people will experience and understand. So children and young people will understand healthy relationships and how to get help. Participants in the justice system. So we heard a lot of kōrero about the justice system, particularly the family court, and how it's just not working for people, particularly for victims and survivors and their children. Individual and whānau are supported to heal and overcome the trauma of violence. So this is actually, I think, one of the greatest innovations of the strategy. We have a strategy that focuses not just on prevention, but also on healing. And the thing we heard over and over again is you can't prevent further violence from happening if you haven't healed from violence. And if you look across the system, there is not actually a huge amount there to help you do that. So I think over the next few years, we're going to see a real increase in the way we think about healing. I also think, though, we have to be careful not to almost commoditize healing. So healing, may not be a 12 or 18-week service. It may be faith-based. It may be culturally based. It may be therapy-based, maybe art therapy. Healing needs to look different for different people, and we really need to recognise that. Tangata whenua, Pacific peoples, ethnic communities, LGBTQIA+ communities, older people, children and young people, disabled communities can access tailored supports and services. So this is another thing that we know just needs a huge amount of work. There are so many communities in New Zealand that actually don't have what they need when violence occurs or how to prevent violence. And then that also goes to women, wahine, Māori and others impacted by violence, access integrated and inclusive responses to enable safety. People who use violence are accountable and supported to change. So this is another area I think we're going to see real growth over the coming years. Reduced tolerance for violence and inequity across Aotearoa. So this links back to the first one around primary prevention being aligned and not creating the conditions for violence. And then finally, families, whānau and community can take action to prevent violence. So this is massive, right? Because what we heard through the engagement is people don't want to come to government. They want to go to people that they know and be able to address and prevent violence in a way that is healthy and safe for them. And at the moment, we know that it's a bit of a postcode lottery for this being able to happen. So ideally, these shifts and impacts work together to then create the moemoeā. And that is on the far right here that says all people in Aotearoa New Zealand are thriving, their well-being is enhanced and sustained because they are safe and supported to live their lives free from family violence and sexual violence. Now that moemoeā again really demonstrates what we heard on the road. And it wasn't so much that we were on the road, but that actually you guys were out having conversations. And it was really focus on well-being, because if you're well, there is not violence. And, well-being is a byproduct of no violence. Eliminating violence, will just happen if people are well. So that is why the moemoeā really focuses on that well-being. I thought it might be good now just to have a quick run through the shifts. So I'm just going to get to that page. No, sorry, one moment. Here we go. So shift 1 is all about strength-based well-being. So it's again reflecting what we heard through the engagement, which was people are sick of hearing about deficit. They're sick of hearing about loss and what is not happening. If we were to start amplifying what was working well and supporting efforts to achieve elimination through prevention and through addressing violence, we would start to see real change. So focus on strength-based well-being. The first action here, Te Aorerekura, supported by a clear investment plan, is one of the linchpins, I would say, of the strategy. That is around saying, what does the system need to really function well to eliminate violence? So thinking about the three different parts of the system, primary prevention, responding and healing, what needs to happen there? And then across different communities in New Zealand, what do they need to be able to prevent and address violence? This is a big piece of work, and we actually won't finish the investment plan until mid to late next year. And that is because it just is going to require so much, and it links to other actions in the action plan that I'll talk through. This year in August, we'll deliver some components of an action plan to the Minister to help us start thinking about investment over this year. But the big piece of work won't be finished until next year. And as we get through some of the actions, you'll see why they feed into it. Action 2, agencies integrate community-led responses, is all about how we support community-led leadership of addressing violence. We're starting with 5 locations, so the Waikato, Canterbury, the far north, Tairāwhiti, and where's my 5th one? Hang on, it'll come to me. South Auckland. How could I forget him? In South Auckland there. So starting there to say, actually, how do you really support and enable a community-led response? Actions 3 and 4 are really, really dear to my heart, and they're all about how you strengthen wahine Māori leadership and then ensure that there's a succession plan for leaders coming through. Through the engagement, again, we heard, this work falls on 1 or 2 people. Where is their succession plan, and how do we uplift and uphold wahine in this space? And these 2 actions will start to do this. And over coming action plans, I really hope we can focus on other communities so that all women are supported to lead in this area. One of the things I'm really mindful of in my time here is that the growth and the development in family violence and sexual violence really has been, women have been at the forefront of that understanding, of that scholarship, of those efforts to address and prevent violence. And, I think it's really amazing to be able to acknowledge that and recognise that. So that's shift 1. Any questions before I get into the next shift? And Silvana, do I need to go a bit faster?
You have like 10 more minutes.
Okay, I will. I can do it. Any questions?
Well, there is a question, Nashwa, but I think I'll hold it until the last. Let's just finish with the shifts and then we'll come back to the question.
Cool. Okay. So shift 2, mobilising communities. So this is really focused on the evidence that says if communities are supported and enabled and funded to make decisions about the things that are important to them, to share evidence about what works and to lead their own efforts, we'll see real change. Of course, those things have to be done safely, but the more that communities can lead in this way, that is where elimination will come, and perhaps elimination to this point or even reducing violence hasn't been successful because we don't do enough of this in New Zealand. So there are a few sort of actions in here. One is action 5, and I would say this is going to be really important. This is around how we work together to have a mechanism, a way of you being able to know what we're working on, share views and thoughts on it, and then help us develop those pieces of work. We're hoping by the end of the year to have a mechanism, and I know there are conversations happening in these communities around what that could look like. And then I think that conversation will hopefully shift over the year into kind of what your priorities for your community are. Action 6 is all about how you commission better. So how do we do contracting and procurement better? And then the next 3 are all about that regional, tangata whenua, and then collective leadership. So what's happening in the regions? How do we get a ministerial advisory group for tangata whenua to start thinking at a system level? And then the hui and the hui is happening on July 27th and 28th. I'd love to see you there because I think it's going to be a really special time. And the hui also represents the first time everyone is coming together in the space to go, how's it going? What do we need to do more of, do less of? What can we learn? And what should we do next? So if you haven't got a save the date, drop me a line in the chat and I'll get you an email so that you've got it in your calendar for the 27th and 28th. It's all online, so you can just dip in and out as you need to, but it means you don't have to leave the comfort of your office or your home as well, which I now am a big fan of. Shift 3 is the workforce, the skilled, culturally competent workforce, and there are a range of actions in here. 10 and 11 are about the tools and the frameworks for understanding capability and then making sure government agencies implement those. 12 is about tools for informal helpers and communities. 13 is about getting some primary prevention out there, some skilled primary prevention practitioners. 14 and 15 are about specific workforces. 14 is for children and 15 is for the courts. Most people say to me that they think this is the action that will see the biggest change across the system, and I think there might be something in that. So this is going to be huge. Action 10 this year has already seen the release of 2 capability frameworks for family violence, and next year we'll see the capability frameworks for sexual violence released, and then that will be Action 10 sort of sorted. By the end of next year, all frontline government agencies that are listed in the action plan, so people like your WINS workers, prison staff, people like that have to be trained to understand, recognise family violence and then what to do about it. I'm going to move to shift 4 now. So this is the primary prevention shift. As you can see, it's the biggest shift. There is a lot in there. Shift 1 sees government agencies work together to get a model and then start kind of organising themselves around that model, and that's well underway. 17 and 18 are about tools and curriculum. 19 is a specific program that will be run through ACC around supporting and understanding whakapapa. And then 20 and 21 are sort of around infrastructure and prevention. And so is 23, which is around ethnic communities. 22 is around a sexual violence program for Māori and Tau iwi that's being run out of ACC. And then 24, 25 are focused on the school and the early years, so the first 1,000 days, so that's 24, and 25 is social and emotional learning for children in schools. And then 26 is around community-led solutions for child sexual abuse. So this is our biggest shift in terms of the number of actions in there, and I think it's really exciting to see this real what is it, like a real sort of steep cliff in the effort that's happening in primary prevention. Shift 5 is our response. Now, you probably know that the response part of the system is probably the most mature. If you pick up the phone and call 111, you'll get help. And there are a range of different sort of community police or community government partnerships around the country. However, we also know that there's still a lot to do here. So 27 is around the court. 28, 29 and 30 all flow into Action 1, the investment plan that I talked about earlier. So 28 is saying, how do we get safeguarding for disabled and vulnerable adults? You may know that for disabled people, there is basically no response other than a 111 call. There is nothing tailored. And we know that the dynamics of violence for disabled people are very different. So having something focused on that is 28. 29 and 30 are massive and also feed that investment plan. So community by community, what are the gaps for family violence and then for sexual violence, and how might we fill them? MSD are leading those actions, and I think they're only just sort of getting going, but there's a huge amount of work to come in there. 31 is a family violence response sort of case management system, so some sort of technological solution. And then 32 is improving the service of Family Start that is run out of Oranga Tamariki. Last shift is shift 6, healing. So this has a similar action to actions 29 and 30 around what are the gaps. So that's action 33, gaps in healing. And then this piece will also feed into action 1, which is the action plan. And then 34 is around resources for parents, caregivers and whānau, so they will be publicly available resources. The 35 around local Māori services, we think this is going to be really, really interesting as we really start to work with communities in kaupapa Māori, healing and restoration. 36 and 37, so 36 is around whānau-centred facilitation and other whānau-centred solutions, and 37 is Ngā Tini Whitu, which is a partnership of ACC, Te Puni Kokiri, and one other group, the whānau order commissioning agencies, around actually having whānau-centred approaches. So they're the 6 shifts, and then I'll just show you learning and monitoring. So we have 3 more actions in learning and monitoring, 38 and 39, around what is that outcomes framework. So how do we take this whole strategy and know if we're being successful? So this will start to work out how you measure that, and then we'll work community by community to work out what those measures are that you think will show how things are going in your community. We know that a lot of communities have said they're sick of, police stats, and actually we need broader measures to understand how we're going. 39 will lay out how we might do that. And then 40 is around how do you build the evidence base for primary prevention, starting in sexual violence. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and just ask if there are any questions, and let you guys kind of talk for a bit about your thoughts and reactions to this.
Thank you, Nashwa, for that great presentation about the strategy. It's so clear when you explain it that it's really good to see the whole picture. Pari, I think you identify a question on this.
Yes, Silvana, if we have time, just quickly, 2 questions here. We do know immigration is not playing a huge part in this thing, but however, there's a question to cover international students and work visa holders, because people coming here, they also do need healing. So what are your thoughts on that, Nashwa? And the other question is on the role of schools and educational system in this whole strategy.
Oh, thanks, Faria. Look, I think the whole question of visas and work visas or students being able to access support is still to be really worked through. So I spent a lot of time sort of pleading and stroking Immigration New Zealand to try and come into the strategy. And one day I'll tell you about the high where I thought they'd said yes and then they hadn't quite said yes. But I'm still working on them because we know that this is a massive area, and even just getting those evidence requirements changed would be, I think, really a great first step. In terms of access for things like healing, so access is a massive issue, and at the moment, is not for students or work visas. I think that will be very, very hard to achieve, to be honest. I think we've got a better chance of getting the evidence requirements changed. But I'd be really keen to strategize with you about kind of the order of things that you'd like us to push with them, because I totally get that all of this needs to be done. And the other thing, I have this amazing person that I work with here at the joint venture who came from Immigration New Zealand and knows their world very, very well. So I think we've got a really helpful ally here to help us in the I'm going to say battle. I don't mean it to be so militant, but it's also kind of is a bit of a battle, isn't it? And then the education system. So we heard a lot about that as well. The problem I have is every time everyone says change the curriculum, teachers say, look, you can't shove everything in the curriculum, and actually when do parents do more and we have healthy homes and things like that. And so I feel very sympathetic to both. I think the changes in the curriculum around healthy relationships would be good. I often hear from Ange Jury at the Women's Refuge that she wants to see a greater focus on empathy and compassion taught through the curriculum. I understand actually that is part of now the healthy relationships curriculum. I haven't actually gone through and looked other than seeing the press announcement, but I am keen to explore that further to see whether we think that will help. But I think those changes are a really good start in healthy relationships, and you know, consent and things like that. And, you know, they have started to be rolled out now and there's more to come over this year.
Thank you, Nashwa.
Any other questions? Negan?
Hello. Sorry, I'm at my work office. Thank you for making it clear. I was just about to write it down, and I know it's very hard to talk about to immigration and how to reach out, but like I think it should be informed. They should be maybe they need to know these are prospective New Zealand, these women, and they are prospective New Zealand residents and citizens, and they are probably highly educated, they are getting good jobs, and it's better to prevent and start include them in the system. So in the future, when they are residents, when they are citizens, New Zealand government don't end up paying for all the things that they have been through while they were on temporary visas, because reality is this big gap, like 6 years, 5 years, whatever that it takes them to be a resident. They are migrant, they are getting all sorts of issues, and probably while being in abusive or controlling situation makes them in 5-6 years, they might end up, you know, being in needing those services. And if they will be included in the system already for services and support, you know, maybe it will cost New Zealand government less in future. Thank you.
Just very briefly, if I don't see any more questions or hands up, Nashwa, when you were saying about education, but as part of the training of the workforce, is teachers and the medical force eventually going to get trained on the impact, at least, of family violence and maybe how to identify it?
Yes, so that's been a very interesting conversation, Silvana. Again, through that engagement, the number of teachers who talked about having disclosures of violence that they have to deal with and feeling really unprepared and unsafe, and, you know, having a disclosure of violence because the child trusts them, but part of the trust is they're not allowed to do anything or say anything because the child actually doesn't want the home broken up or changed. They just need to share, and, you know, that's a huge burden actually for someone, and very difficult things to navigate. So at this stage, teachers aren't included, but we are still really pushing because we think that that is such a critical part of the system. And we heard from so many teachers just feeling really, really overwhelmed about that. Medical workers, so another difficult conversation. There are about 250,000 medical workers that need degrees of training. And anecdotally, we've heard over the years that about 30% of disclosures happen to medical professionals. That's about the same number of people that call the police for family violence. So very similar numbers. We are just going through a process at the moment of working out which professions in the medical profession, because there are so, you know, doctors, nurses, occupational therapists, physios, etc. How do you, healthcare support workers, which ones would we do and where do we think the most impact would come? And I would really appreciate any views or feedback that you have on that to help in that conversation.
Thank you so much. Anything else from the rest of the room? If not, I will say thank you, Nashwa, so much for coming and giving time to share with us the strategy. I am thinking it was like hard to ask people to read it because it's a long document, but I am pretty sure that after listening to you, there is many people who actually want to go and read it now and see that hard detail. And we will go now into the breakout rooms to have conversations in between us about the different shifts according to our interests. So thank you, Nashwa, so much again.
Thank you.
And And there is a lot of emails in the chat that I am thinking that they are for you and for that invitation to that hui. So we will copy all that chat and we will send it to you. So don't worry if you don't get them all, but we will send them and hopefully they get the link to the conference or the hui at the end of July.
Thank you so much. So yes, if I could have all of those emails, that would be really great. And if anyone has any questions or anything, I'll put my email in the chat and feel free to contact me if you have any questions or you get so excited about the strategy, you need to talk more. I love hearing people talk about it. So give me your thoughts, tell me what you like and what you hate. I'm always up for that conversation. Thank you,
Nashwa, for doing that, because sometimes people, I know that our people is really outspoken and they really want to have the opportunity to say things directly.
Oh no, tell me.
You know, and I can be sharing other people's email address, but if you are doing it, you're throwing yourself to the lions, and you know, the lions will roar, but kindly, no war.
I look forward to it. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Nashwa.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So, like now that we understand a little bit more about the strategy, we will break into room. Like I say, we have created 6 rooms, 1 for each shift. You're welcome to choose which one is more interesting for you. And there are some questions there that the different facilitators will be posting there. Thank you everyone for coming back. I don't know if everyone took their break or not, but we will give 2 more minutes. We will start at 11:20. So if someone want to go to the loo quickly or make a cup of tea or anything, please go now. Like I said, we will start in a couple of minutes again. Take the chance. But let's
got each other's backs.
Yes. Let's start with the sharing back from the different groups. I would like to invite from shift 1, probably we will start. And we will invite, where is,
Deborah Robertson is going to feedback.
Yeah, Deborah. Okay, so Deborah, you start.
So we were looking at strengths-based well-being. So for what does this shift mean to us? We talked about that it was about empowering victims to change to be survivors, so changing the language around that. And we talked about acknowledging higher education of the people that come into New Zealand, to make sure that they're being acknowledged for the skills and talents that they have and the strengths that they offer New Zealand, because violence can often start because of a lack of acknowledgement of the skills that they have to offer. And that it was important to understand what respect looks like in New Zealand culture within those families, so that they're clear about the differences from where they've come from. And some actions that we talked about were to support them to integrate into New Zealand. So that could include having cultural and linguistic support to understand what Kiwi culture is, and obviously learning English, and having high expectations of them, that they will perform well, because rather than assuming that they won't try, because this is good for their children, so that they can have be good role models for their children. We also talked about masculinity and men to men programs, so men running programs for men, and not just a weekend, but long term, so that real change can happen, about teaching them tools about positive parenting, healthy marriages, mindfulness courses, but not calling them family violence workshops, terming them in a really positive way that encourages people to come, and that the right people to run that would be through churches and temples and mosques, and having a leader that they already respect running those programs, because they've already got the cultural knowledge and respect of those people.
Are you done?
Yes.
That was really good, Deb. Thank you. Anyone has any comment or any question that they will like to add? Not that Deb is an expert, but in terms of unpacking something that she might have said and you would like no more? can't see everyone at the moment.
I can only kōrero. I'm having my cup of tea, sorry. I can only kōrero from experience with attempting to accept, to access religious leaders' support. And it hasn't always been successful in the work that we've done. We also agree that that's a great place to educate. But I think there are some challenges there because the Muslim community is very multi-diverse. It should be a place of being useful, but I'm not sure if we're there yet. And so what I'm saying is, if we can find the right people who can be attached to the masjid, that might be a better place for things to consider. I don't think sometimes the religious leaders are the right people to be delivering because they come in with, they have different mindsets, inter-racism. So just putting that all on the table. Sorry for being so frank, but I just want to make sure that everybody's safe. Those that, those that we can help develop to teach and those that actually need to be taught.
I think this is, if I could just add, the whole idea of based on what I understood from the presentation on point number 1, is that involving the religious people is not that they are the main one from the community, but this is one of the lines that we're working on. So, because not even in the, let's say if it's in the Muslim, as you explained, in the Muslim community, not all the Muslims are associated with the mosque or centralized around the mosque. So to reach everyone, but a lot of them are. So maybe to reach to everyone, there should be more than one line to work on, and one of them would be this one, but not the main one. So in each ethnic community, you would have to include that religious group or authority part, but also you need to include other parts as well, or other people who would be helpful, but not only the religious, but they are also important. And they would say, as a Muslim, they play a big role. They could play a big role in a good way as well.
I might jump in because I'm talking about shift 2, which is towards mobilizing communities, and this feels very appropriate for me to speak now and feedback on what my group said. So I just scroll back to my notes. Oh, how do I go back to my notes? Oh no, I'm big. Very scary. Sorry, team. just take a breath. Okay, so my group was really awesome. We were talking about shift 2. Towards mobilizing communities, and I kind of dialed back our conversation first and asked people. Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll back in the chat and see the notes that I was writing there. What does community mean to you? And we had lots of important points raised. So things that people talked about was community wasn't just who we are as in our ethnic identities, it's also what we do. So it could be in a work context or it could be in other activities that we're involved in. One of our group members talked about his work and engaging with people who are surrounded by people but don't feel a part of community or feel really isolated. And I think this is a really, when I heard this, I thought, yeah, this is a really common experience in my experience of working as well. People are really, although they're surrounded by people, they don't feel connected to them. They don't feel a part of the community. We talked about, one of our group members had a really good point about community being a conceptual word. I think this is really important because you can easily say mobilizing communities and then cherry pick people who you want, right? That's not really representative of the community then. And then we kind of talked about belonging and how people experience belonging. And I thought this might be a key to seeing if someone is part of community or not, right? Yeah, and thinking about like insider and outsider dynamics and like group dynamics and things like this. I asked as well, where have you seen community working well? Because we kind of thought, what's community? How do we know what it is? So then we talked about what was working well. We landed on a community as a place where we feel welcomed. We might have shared worldviews or shared perspectives. Bringing people together is what creates a community. So like bringing together people with a shared purpose. Community can also be the networks we have, and that might be broader than what we might think. I was talking about how the lifeguards at the local pool are part of my community. We were talking about maybe if you catch a regular bus, the bus driver might be someone you're connected to, or like the shopkeeper at the dairy down the road. People talked a lot about being kind and our attitudes towards each other, but also that we're all people first. We're not just workers. We're people first and foremost, connected to other people, and that's really important. Yeah, that's my report on shift 2. Feel free to jump in, anyone else in my group. I tried to do all of our thoughts justice.
I think that when we were talking about leaders, and I think Sister Nolene came in and said it's not appropriate for the leader to mosque leaders to be involved in this work, but I think I have got an opposing idea to her, that leaders should be responsible, whether or they do not reach everyone, but they will reach some people, and some people reaching out to some people and saving family violence in that families is more than what we are doing now. So I think, yes, there's lots of ways to get people to talk about violence and all that, but I think to start off, we have to have leaders, because they are the influential people, and they can, if they can save one family from family violence, that's one family less of the list. So I think leaders should be made accountable, and the responsibility should go to them to save their communities. I feel strongly about that, because lots of people go to mosque, a lot of people go to churches, a lot of people go to temples. If we are able to save some families from the family violence through these leaders, it's most welcome. So that's my case.
I think your point's really important, Jenny, and I'm looking at shift 3, which is about towards skilled, culturally competent and sustainable workforces. So maybe we could hear from that group and see if they had any ideas on this.
So Iman is presenting from shift 3.
Yes, I wanted to, but my daughter is crying actually at the moment. But anyway, I will try to be brief on this one. So we are discussing about towards culture. What was this one? It was about towards a skilled, culturally competent workforce, and we discussed how this is relevant to the ethnic communities. We agree that, but also it should be done in the right way, like, for example, involving skilled people from the communities, from the different ethnic communities, maybe providing them with the required upskilling or trainings that are needed, if they are needed. Some of us say that we do have skilled people within most of the communities, so this is something that we should take into consideration, but most of the governmental agencies do not employ them. People who are in the governmental agencies are mostly from non-ethnic background, and this is one issue. So you need more diversity in the workplace in these fields related to the let's say family and sexual violence prevention. We also highlighted, I'm sorry if I forgot something, I hope that the group members could support me. We mentioned this is something about, we don't have a clear information about how much the violence happen in different ethnic groups, and that's why having people from these communities will help to reflect the actual situation, and then to take the right action, like identify the needs for each community. I'm looking at the questions. Sorry, I will look at the questions just to answer, and then yeah, and I think some other points maybe we just highlighted it here. So if I forget something, I hope the group members could or the people from room 3 can add.
Well, thank you, Iman. Again, you have something to add?
It was just, I think we mentioned that the upskilling needs to be in both ways. So if migrants need to know about New Zealand contexts, I think government and the current staff needs to be upskilled and know more about the communities, because without knowing the context, they cannot come up with solution. There is lack of
Yes,
awareness.
Yeah, that was an important point that I missed, is about even if we have skilled people who came as migrants here, we need to like provide them with the relevant training too, so that they could actually be effective within the or have the right skills within that applies to the New Zealand context.
That great points, Iman. And again, just wanted to add another point where we are, like we said, we have people who already have the skills in our community, but it is for the government to pick up how they can change or alter their pathways to employ such community or such people who are already existing. So along with the upskilling of communities, which is the shift 6 actions in the shift 3, why don't we also add the changes or changing of the mechanisms in the government level where they can accommodate such skilled people, employing them and making those pathways for them where they can get employed. So that was another point. Thank you so much. I think that is it from shift 3.
Thank you, Faria, Iman, and again for sharing what the group thought. Do we have anyone from shift 4 wanting to share? I think that is the one that Juanita was talking at the beginning, that they also forgot to nominate, because I think we all forgot it until the last minute where we have to start pointing each other.
Dana?
Yeah, that's me.
Great. Go for
sorry, I can't turn on my video though. All right. So for ours, shift 4, which is a shift about rather than it's about providing the education to prevent family violence and sexual violence from occurring in the first place rather than a crisis response. And it's about promoting the factors and decreasing the factors behind that. And what did this mean to us as ethnic communities? We thought that our perspective on the shift is that we need written documents or information about this, but which are also available, but the majority of them are in forms of reports and long essays, which is not very accessible for everyone. And as you've mentioned before, a lot of us, this is like English is our second language, and having those resources in English written in complicated reports and long essays and such is not very helpful to reach wider people. And so if we have like other resources like videos, audios that are more accessible and understandable by like younger people and older people alike, it's easier to understand rather than written documents or reports. And also, like, not a lot of people actually know about the programs happening and the things that are happening. So more advertising of what's being done would be very helpful for like other communities, because a lot of these things I'm hearing about them happening for the first time. I've never like even knew like I've been reading the chat, and there are like a lot of organizations and agencies and people, and I never knew half of these even existed, the majority of them. So more making them more like making people know that they actually exist, which can be done by like school and stuff, like telling people about it is a must. So And when it comes to
ماخذين شاربين الحليب.
oh, those someone. So what actions do we need to see this shift achieve in our community? We thought that different areas involving different areas from different communities, which was talked about in the second shift. But like Jenny have said before, we could get mosques and leaders involved from churches, but also if we can target youth groups, which and other places where like gathering places for ethnic communities, because like it was said before, although a leader cannot reach everyone, they can reach some people. And the more people that have help accessible, the better it is for us. And about how we're preparing parents. So recognizing that violence can happen within a family and outside of the family, and teaching and education about it. I feel like a lot of this is left on the parents to educate their children about how to prevent, like how to protect themselves and stuff. And at schools is not mentioned. Education about this topic of violence within a family is not really told, like there's no education about it, and that's where school comes. So what, like a lot of this type of education is expected on the parents to provide to their child, but then what if the parent is the problem, then what now? And that's where school is really important, education at school, which the 23rd action in our shift talks about how changes to the curricula need to occur, which we agreed with very much, and we think some changes need to be made to encompass other aspects of violence, since a lot of education from health class and stuff at school is targeted towards like sexual safety and stuff, and not a lot of the crisis response and crisis prevention kind of aspect. So yeah, and so we've noticed a gap in a lot of the shifts. So there's education to youth, education to children, but what about the people that have already experienced it or are in older years? So how do we reach those people as well? And also like a lot of strategies are focused on crisis response rather than protection when a risk is noticed. Because we can, there's education on prevention, there is education on what to do when a crisis does happen, but then there are people who have recognized the risk, and when they reach out to help is not provided until something bad happens, and then the response is met. So we've noticed that gap, and how that's why like a lot of the educational resources for kids and youth and stuff are only targeted towards educating the younger generation rather than our growing part of the population. So what is being done to meet the needs of those people? So yeah, any questions?
Thank you, Dana, for sharing that. Did anyone have any quick question, or in the group want to complete any idea or anything? Dana did a very comprehensive, good job, but maybe something missed. Anyone within group 4? No? So maybe we can go to, thank you, Dana, for sharing that. Can we go to shift 4? Sorry, shift, I don't know what I said that, but I wanted to say 5. Shift 5, anyone from that group that would like to share? I think, did we say that Suha was going to talk?
Yes.
Oh.
So shift 5 was really about responses to an issue or crisis. And we really identified issues from a government level and within Te Tiriti. So like Dana said, thinking about who the system is made accessible for. So for ethnic elders, for example, who have experienced sexual abuse or violence, but have not been told of their rights in a new country once they've migrated. It's definitely those language barriers that pose a lot of the problem here. So we kind of wanted to focus on, and we discussed government plans that would involve language that's accessible to ethnic communities, so that they know their rights and they know what they're entitled to, and they know what, sexual violence is in New Zealand by law. So integrating language into, legal documents and documents about sexual violence where you know how to identify what's happened to you, how you can respond to that, where you can go to help, stuff like that. So especially, I mean, you can even look at the treaty, for example, in law. It's so misinterpreted, and definitions like whānau, for example, have not really been implemented into family law as of yet. So in that way, you have disputes between what can be defined as a problem or what can be defined as violence, and therefore where you can go forward with a solution. So we think that from a government level, there needs to be changes to accessibility in terms of language and comprehension of these important sources about sexual violence. Apart from that, yeah, we just mainly talked about that Te Tiriti should be really more involved in sexual violence law and family law, and made more accessible to the community, because it's a huge part of creating any shift for ethnic communities in New Zealand. So if we don't start there, then really there can be no significant change. I think that's about it. If anyone else has any other comments to add or questions, go ahead.
Does anyone have any question or further comments? I think I was in that group, and I think, Suha, you resumed it really well. Some of the things that we talked were talked as well in other shifts. So I think Payal was commenting at the beginning how actually many of the shifts and actions are interrelated. So I think we can start hearing and seeing those connections. Anyone else from group 5 that would like to share? If not, I will invite please someone from the healing group, the shift number 6, to share with us what was the main themes that you find.
Okay, so one of the things that we talked about was that with shift 6, the concept of what healing looks like has changed. They've opened it up to include spiritual and practical beliefs, religion, culture, who is whānau. All of those things have become much more broad, which means that we can do more, that things need to be whānau centered, but still focused on the person who was harmed. And they need to drive who to bring into that. There was also the thought that when families experience this, sometimes the person who has caused the harm has also been harmed previously. And so how do we work around that? So some of the actions that we looked at were having an extremely diverse workforce. Materials need to be translated into usable forms for people, and that we need to be much more visible as minorities or as ethnicities, to be able to say, I am like you, I talk like you, I look like you, I have been through this, I know what it's like, you can talk to me. Because right now there's so much shame and stigma that people don't necessarily come forward. And because they don't know the system, because they don't know what's going to happen. Then we talked about the fact that part of that visibility is being at festivals, being in community events, and being able to have these conversations in ways that are acceptable to the people from those communities. And the actions that are proposed, I was looking through actions 33 to 37, and all of them are part and parcel of those things that we're talking about, and that's about expanding resources so that whānau are resourced and know how to handle violence and can ask for help. So, did I miss anything, guys?
Oh, good, Carrie. This is one thing that Isra was mentioned, that we do particular that ethnic providers or ethnic specialists to whoever, if it's visible around ethnic specialists, then we can connect better. That was the one of the things we pointing out. Thank you.
Anything else from this group or like to share? I just want to share something when Carrie started that I never thought before, but actually what gave me the idea that actually this shift gives a huge opportunity for all those therapists that we have within ethnic communities that they have been trained overseas and that they haven't been able to heal people or to offer therapy because they haven't been recognized within the New Zealand Counseling Association or social work degree or stuff like that. But maybe we could start working and frame it in a way because yes, that's respond under the healing shift, you know, so it could be another door for them to start working with the tools and in the language that they learn, you know, back home. So that could be something really cool.
And that also connects with Shift 3, Silvana, where the government needs to upskill, where they can make pathways for these overseas qualified people.
True, that is really good. Maisa, do you want to say something?
Yeah, and I think also, you know, especially this kind of topics, because it's so sensitive, I think that's why the people, they are not coming to seek help because it's a privacy and so sensitive. So also to prepare people in different language that they can communicate directly with the victim or with the client without the middle person of interpreter or something. This is the thing that's, you know, in our community we face, because the people, they don't ask for help because they don't want someone to, you know, it's a private stuff and they're afraid from the community to know what's going on. So I think this is one of the things that they must focus on, different people that they are speaking different language, so it will be one-to-one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ivana. I was just thinking about how healing looks
I want to
different.
add something, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
go for it, whoever's speaking.
Yeah, I agree with Maisa. With the community, in our community, there is a lot of problems. So sometimes the privacy is very important. Then it's you know, sometimes the problems will be like little bit, and after that it will be like bigger and bigger and bigger. So I agree with her, but this is a very important point, and a lot of people feel afraid to speak about these things in a community. This is what I mean. But maybe if they find the help in another community, they can go and speak about it. But in a community, they will face a lot of problem. But yeah, I hope we can make this in our community and everything is going well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rasha. We will listen to Payal quickly and then Dana. We have 6 minutes to go, team. So Payal, you go, and then we let Dana, and hopefully if someone else wants to speak, they can do it. Go.
I'm really hearing what lots of different
just
people are saying.
5 seconds. I think what Rasha meant was privacy should be should always be forced in communities. And escalation is not like good. That's what I think Rasha meant. Thank you.
Thank you, Shad. Please, if everyone is quiet, because Payal has been trying to make a point, and it's great to have outspoken people and everyone want to participate. We definitely welcome that. Payal, you go.
I was thinking a lot about healing and the capacity for healing, and also my group's conversation about community and how do we define community. And I think if we look for one solution, we're always going to fight about what this one solution is. I think what's going to work for some people isn't going to work for others. You know, the most important thing, the most healing thing in my life has been someone paying for me to get a swimming pool pass. That is not what success looks like for other people. You know, we could not buy everyone a swimming pool pass and then we would have healing, but that's what worked for me. And I think this is a really important point. People are the experts in their own experience, and we really need to think about this. When we predetermine what healing looks like and what people need, we don't come up with the solutions. I think we have to ask people, what has worked for me hasn't been any amount of therapy, any amount of services. It's having people who love and care about me and support me to live a life worth living as determined by me. And I just think this might be really important for other people as well. So let's not try and fit everyone into one box. Let's try to break open those boxes and work out what people want and need as determined by them.
Thank you, Payal, for that powerful addressing. Dana, you have your hands up.
Yes, so I really liked what the conversations we had today. So I was thinking it would be great if we can have a youth only space for this type of conversations, because as a youth myself, I would not be able to speak freely with someone from, let's just say, my community, or someone I know who is older and knows about all this stuff, so they can go and search my home like right after. So it's really like, it'll be really nice, because when we have older people, it's hard to open up about things, because there are things to consider, especially in my culture or community, because there's hierarchy and like around how you should act a certain way around older people, and opening up fully I would not be able to do it unless it's like in a safe youth only space. It's easier for us to talk about and discuss our ideas without worrying about any type of like I don't know, any type of, you know, flashback that we might get from anyone else. And yeah, it'll be really cool if we could have a youth only space for this type of conversation, or the same as like the Zoom today, but just for youth. That'll be really cool. Thank you.
Great idea, Dana, and no worries. We will definitely, if it's not us, someone here in the room will take on that and approach you probably as well to work together. Melinda, you want to speak as well?
Oh, here we are. Yes, I'm getting excited about the healing topic, and I have a lot of comments on that, and also my interest. I feel quite excited about that topic. How can we get people after their journey get gradually and steadily and feels excited and supported heal? That's in community. I feel quite a lot of project activities we could create in terms of cultural sensitive, cultural appropriate, and also belief and their philosophy of their life. Especially, I come from a Chinese culture, and there's so much we can do in NGO settings or community settings or community group settings. And there's a lot of things we could put in the list to get it available for people to join, to be part of it. We don't need to say much, but just do things together. People feel that supported, feel that they are safe there, and feel that they are in their mind space. They feel calm, they feel enjoyable. That's part of healing, isn't it? And they also feel safe when they're ready to talk. and they feel safe because everybody knows each other, know how they feel, how they think, and what they like, and they could get right support from each other emotionally and also physical needs. And in life, have a lot of needs. We are as a migrant, as we touched prior from our colleagues. And that's practical needs as well. We know each other, create friendship. And that's really important for healing. I agree with Peo that everybody is different. They need a difference. So we have to, from the broad group, to identify individuals through the contact, frequent contact, and close contact to identify that needs, to suit that particular individual's healing. And I feel that we can do it. We can make that happen. And already we are doing it. And we just need to be a little bit more formal, need a little more variety, and target more people to join, to open themselves up, to feel safe. And we get supported from organization or our groups. And I feel that really part of the journey is important journey of crisis, trauma, and whatever hurts emotionally. It does make a crucial part of the journey, the healing part.
Thank you, Melinda, for those words. Really appreciate that everyone want to keep engaging and want to keep talking, but we are getting to 12 o'clock. We passed already. 12 o'clock is the end of the day. I want to thank you so much, everyone, for coming along. Please feel free to send emails or comments to Nashwa or to us. We try to create these platforms, and we want to keep the dialogue. We may need to create like a Facebook group where we can all carry on talking, and wherever times it fits, we could share there maybe the presentation as well. So we will send that invite. I am seeing a lot of heads nodding, so maybe there is interest on that. So we will start it, and let's see what happens. There is one more Hui to come. We have planned that one for September or October. We will see how busy it is for our ethnic communities. We know that Diwali is around, and so many different celebrations that we don't want people to miss because, this important Hui. We will be looking more deeply at prevention. We know that there is a huge area for development within our communities and within the whole country. And we also, because we know that if we start as communities aligning our projects with what government is doing, we have much more chances of get funding and securing that resources that we need to put our projects together. So let's take on this opportunity. And again, thank you so much, everyone. I don't know if anyone has any final word that they would like to say in less than a minute, because we need to close by 12:05. Anyone? Yep, Yasuhiro.
Yeah, hi. I have a question as the lady is late and have a pregnant, how we support and how we prevent as soon as possible.
Someone is pregnant and that person needs support.
Adoption world, this baby adopted actually, and wanted the baby grow in the mom, so adopted in the adoption world. It's happening, reality. So how prevent also pregnancy? So as soon as possible, mom, unfortunately have to work with this, healing her and take care of the pregnancy, and if pregnant, how we look after and the loss of a baby and trauma, both.
If you are talking in general across communities, I think that is probably a topic for a whole Hui, in terms of how we support pregnant moms, how we create information about pregnancy, preventing pregnancy, or going through pregnancy. If you're talking about a specific clients or specific people that you would like to be able to support. We have Farilla here, who is our social work practice manager. You can make contact with her just in terms of keeping the privacy of the client and making sure that we don't talk about those things. And again, if there is more interest about the group talking around pregnancy, we know we have at Shama, we have been approached by DHBs because there are some stats that they say that there is negative pregnancy outcomes for some ethnicities. What those negative outcomes mean sometimes is different. We know that they don't like, for example, women having scissors, but we know that some of us ethnic women, we love scissors and been making sure that it's safe. So, you know, there are some kind of conversations that probably will be good to unpack on there. So if there is interest, please, again, let us know, reach out, and we will create that Facebook group and invite everyone in this room. So we will be able to have those conversations. 12:05, time to go. Let's keep in touch. Let's keep connecting. And again, thank you so much, everyone.
You want to finish with Karakia?
Oh, yes, true. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a Karakia here. I hope everyone can see it. It says, Etefano, Faya, Te Matauranga, Kia Marama, Kia Fai, Takenanga Mahi Katoa, Tumaya, Tukaha, Aroha Tau, Aroha Mai, Tatui, Tato Katua. Oh my God, sorry. It's tricky, but we all need to give it a go. People, Terreo is one of the languages of this land. For this family gathering, seek knowledge for understanding, have purpose in all that you do. Stand tall, be strong. Let us show respect for each other. In this gathering and now there to the world. Thank you again so much, everyone, and have a brilliant day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.